On my blog, I've written the strengths and weaknesses of using myth as a means for discussing God and metaphysical realm. But what's interesting is that there are 11 strengths and 5 weaknesses. Now, I always say there's more weaknesses than strengths because that's the nature of the subject. But here I think that's probably because the biggest weakness is if we take myth seriously, then we have to take the resurrection as a myth. And basically, if that's a myth, then the whole of Christianity kind of gets destroyed, if you see where I'm going with this. So, that's probably why the biggest weakness. Well, let's start by looking at the strengths then. It's an effective means for resolving philosophical and theological problems. Well, myth, the creation story, up till today, is an effective way of explaining people how we came on this earth. It still draws an audience. People still accept it and follow it. They actually do follow it. So it is successful. It does not result in anthropomorphic descriptions of God. If you understand myth and you understand it well and you understand it is non-cognitive and symbolic, you will not be left with anthropomorphic descriptions of God. In that way, it's probably better than something like, I would say maybe analogy, because that to me would leave you with anthropomorphic descriptions of God. It doesn't claim to be fact, so it can't even, it shouldn't really be put through the verification or falsification test. It preserves oral tradition, so it makes things easy and fun to remember. It's something you want to remember. Fun for children. It provides a commentary for discussing the world, so it provides means talking about the fact that it's actually providing a means, because there's not very many means. There's via negativa, myth, simple analogy, and there's probably a few more. But apart from that, so it's adding to the choice, which is good, and when you use it in conjunction with the via negativa symbol, it's excellent. And it can convey meaning which can be conveyed in no other way. So about creation story, how else could you convey it? Could symbol really do it? Analogy? Some of these stories you need myth. There's no other way of looking at them. It's a cathartic mechanism for coping with death, as Armstrong has says, and has therapeutic elements to it. So it's good, and it's really reassuring to people. So people find it useful in dealing with things that are happening with their life. Armstrong also says that if you lose myth, you lose a key part to yourself, because myth isn't just a story for Armstrong. Myth is a part of you. You have two parts, logos and myth, and without myth, then you're not a fully developed human being, is what Armstrong is arguing. She says that generally scholars argue the alternative to to not using myth is taking the Bible literally. That is more problematic, because you cannot take literally that God created the world in 6 days. Where's the evidence? We have Big Bang Theory, etc. It does not make sense. So myth is important. And as I said before, it's non-cognitive, so technically it should not be put to the test of the verification and falsification theory. But had it been put through, it can still pass the test, because they're purely symbolic, the claims, and they provide deeper meanings, which actually so it basically responds to the logical positive. It's best, is what I'm trying to say. The 5 weaknesses I already talked about, the resurrection being a big one, because it basically undermines the resurrection, and if the resurrection did not actually occur, it's a symbolic event, then what are the implications for the whole of Christianity? It is also an old, anachronistic, pre-scientific age it belongs to. We cannot connect to that. That's why Rudolf Bultmann comes and says, let's demythologize myth and we'll make some progress. There's no factual evidence, because obviously, as Karen Armstrong points out, it is not an early attempt at history, and there's no explanation. But it seems illogical to take then a fictional story seriously, because it's like saying take Cinderella seriously because the morals and stuff are serious from it. Nobody's going to take Cinderella seriously, so why take the creation story if it's all just fiction at the end of the day? It's difficult to distinguish between truth or fact. By that I mean that religion and myths do claim some things to be fact. It's not an early attempt at history, but it does claim that God exists and God created the world to be fact. And truth would be that God treats us like his children, things that it's difficult to distinguish between truth and fact with myth. It's very confusing. Trivializes religion, so it basically, as I said, if it all is just symbolic, what's the point? It's like we're following a bunch of fictional children's stories. and it's very often confused with legends or fairy tales, so it's not a straightforward thing to actually use in real life. I hope this video helps. Please visit my blog, and now I have a new Facebook page for you to like.